Hey, Kate, what did you eat last night?
I fired up the grill for the first time this season, and I made chicken burgers. They were supposed to be turkey, but I don't like turkey, so I used chicken. And I put spinach and onion and some feta cheese in there and some oregano and maybe some seasoning, and I think that was about it. And they were really delicious. I'll definitely make them again.
Nice.
Yeah, how about you?
I made Cajun risotto.
Ooh, what's in that?
It was basically that soy riso that we love from Trader Joe's, which is really tasty. A little bit of celery, onion, rosemary. I got some frozen okra, threw that in, some tomatoes, some arborio rice, and vermouth. Just fried it all up. It was really simple, really easy, and really tasty.
I am very impressed that you put okra in something.
Thank you. I tried, trying to branch out.
And vermouth, that's very fancy.
You know me. I'm all about the fancy. Welcome to another episode of You Won't Believe What I Ate Last Night. I'm Rick Fiore.
And I'm Kate DeVore. And this is our ongoing conversation about food, health, weight management, and our endeavor to be and stay healthy in a really tasty world.
With love, kindness, and compassion towards ourselves and others.
On today's episode, we're going to be talking about our pantry staples, things that we think it's really helpful to have on hand that you might want to consider.
In an effort to be healthy and more successful when it comes to cooking. Also, we're talking about what freezes well so you can always have a tasty dish ready to go and avoid wasting food that will store perfectly well.
Yeah, some of these things that you can freeze were really surprising to us.
Okay, now we also have some other housekeeping stuff to get out of the way. This podcast is supported through the generous support of our listeners.
And we want to thank our newest patrons, Bridget from Boston and Lou from Chicago. Woohoo!
If you become a patron, not only are you going to be considered way cool by all of your friends,
all of them.
When we have bonus content, you'll get exclusive access to it. Content such as interviews that don't make it on the podcast, tips and techniques from Kate and I, and so much more. Some people make a one-time donation and others make a reoccurring monthly donation.
You can donate $1 a month or $1 million a month. And you can become a patron at patreon.com/you won't believe what I ate. And you can also find that link on our website under Support the Podcast.
You can also now find us on SoundCloud in addition to iTunes and our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and review us.
And also be a part of the show. Send us your questions or tell us what you ate last night and how you felt about it and how you feel now. You can email us at youwon'tbelievewhatIate@gmail.com. And we recently got a question that was so interesting that we're planning a whole episode around it. So please contribute.
Please. And remember to like our Facebook page. You won't believe what I ate last night. That link is also on our website.
Enjoy.
Enjoy.
So, Rick, let's talk about some things that you can freeze that people might not think are freezable.
All right.
Partly so that we don't throw stuff away if we don't have to.
Totally.
Here's one, avocado. You can freeze avocado. You can take the skin off and take the pit out and freeze avocado. And I have some in the freezer that I haven't tried yet, but I can tell you it hasn't gone brown. And I'm sure if I make it into guacamole or something, it'll be great.
This is why I like having you around, because when I heard about freezing avocado, I just would have put the entire avocado in the freezer.
There you go.
And Kate, just like so many people, you've gone first. You've gone first, lived the tale, and come back to tell the truth.
Do you remember that time I put the coconut in the freezer because I heard that it was easier to open a coconut if you freeze it?
I do.
Yeah, so the punchline is I don't think it's easier to open if it's frozen. And when those people do it on TV really easily, they probably have different tools than I had. That's the other thing.
Like a machete. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
Other thing that freezes really well, nuts, including almonds, pine nuts, and pistachios. So I love having those in the freezer. They're really great to pull out to throw on salads, and also just to like eat a whole handful of seeds. And I can also buy them in bulk. So I love that too.
Yeah, and it keeps them from going rancid, which might happen if we kept them out. Milk and cream you can freeze. So like if you're going out of town and you have a little bit of milk or cream left, you can put it in a container as close to the size as possible of the amount. Like you don't want a huge amount of extra air if you can avoid it, but obviously not super full so it doesn't blow the lid off when it expands, when it freezes.
See, I haven't done that a lot because I actually don't eat a lot of that or consume a lot of that. I would have thought it like separates.
I know.
Huh. Good to know.
I think I did it with half and half once when I was using half and half regularly in my coffee and I had to go somewhere. I'm like, I'm going to try freezing it. What's it going to hurt? And it was totally fine.
God, I always remember my parents would buy half and half on sale. Their entire freezer would be packed with like 10 half and halves. Let's see, cooked beans. Cooked beans are another good one. Only because those are another thing that if I don't use them up in a recipe, I can put them in there. And another great thing I like to pull out and just throw on a salad, an easy way to get protein on something. And it's also just another great way if you want to make a really quick sort of stew with like tomatoes or onions. It's a great thing.
Yeah, the rest of us open a can, but Rick actually gets dried beans and soaks them and cooks them the way you're supposed to.
Dude, God, it's a lot of work.
I open a can and rinse it and drain it. That's how I handle those.
It's so funny you remember that. That's so great.
Well, because my initial response is, why would you freeze cooked beans? Because you make a whole bunch of them if you're going to go to that trouble. That's why.
Exactly. And they're super cheap when you buy in bulk. They're just so much cheaper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. You can freeze wine.
What?
Yeah, you can freeze wine.
Now you're talking crazy talk.
Yeah, I did it. I was going on a cleanse and I had like a third of a bottle of Chardonnay left and I didn't want to throw it out, but I was going on a cleanse and it would have been bad by the time I was going to be drinking again. So I froze it and thought, well, I can always probably cook with it even if it doesn't taste good. It was totally fine.
That's amazing because whenever I've frozen wine before, the cork's always exploded.
Are you serious?
No, I'm joking. It has when I've forgotten to take it out. That's when you forget to chill your bottle and you want it to be cold quickly and you put it in, but then you forget that you're going to have a glass of wine and then something explodes and you're like, what was that?
Oh, yeah. I put it in Tupperware. Right. Exactly. Yeah. I would take it out of the bottle with the pressurized cork. Thank you. Although sometimes it depends on the wine because if it has a high sugar content, it wouldn't freeze solid. But if it freezes at all, it's still going to expand.
I think we should do a whole episode on wines that add sugar. I think people will find that really interesting.
Yes.
Let's see. Grated cheese. Grated cheese is another good one. Another great one. It defrosts really quickly. Another great thing to pull out to mix into stuff. And
other
another
cheese.
thing. Say that again?
It doesn't have to be grated, I think. Just cheese in general.
Now, soft cheese, isn't it like some soft cheese freezes well, but hard cheese doesn't or something like that?
Well, I think it might be the other way around.
Okay.
I think Parmesan freezes okay.
Yes.
Cheddar, I think, is fine. I think the harder ones are okay. Yeah, I wouldn't want to freeze brie for some reason.
My sister's frozen brie, and that actually comes out okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Well then. All right,
but I'm going to double check the brie. I'm going to get back to everyone on the brie. Let me double check that. I'm going to see my sister tonight. Let's see. Here's the other thing that I thought was interesting was bread. Do you freeze bread?
Yeah, sometimes.
God, I've never liked it. I've tried it, and I feel like it changes so quickly that unless I'm going to use it like within a day or two, no, I don't freeze it. But yours?
I also mostly use bread for toast. So any change to the texture I wouldn't notice. But I think I grew up keeping bread in the freezer. And when I made my own out of sprouted wheat, it molds so quickly. I had to keep it in the freezer. And like Ezekiel bread is the same thing. And I've even had that mold in the freezer. It's so susceptible to mold.
Really?
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I frequently freeze bread. And I do. When I take it out, I'm like, but I wouldn't probably make a sandwich out of it.
That's my problem. That makes sense, though, if you're just using it as a toast. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and you can toast it right from the freezer.
Really?
You don't have to defrost it. Yeah, because it just takes longer. Because the first part of the toasting is the defrosting.
Nice. The other big one really big on making is hummus. I tend to make large batches of hummus and freeze them because they're super great thing to pull out, particularly when I know I'm getting home late in the evening. Like that's a really great like evening snack around 9 or 10. And that's what I'm teaching, and I haven't been able to eat since like 4 or 5, and I don't want to eat a big meal, but I'll eat that when I come home, so that's really easy.
And that's good to know because I sometimes make some and then I am sick of it, so I don't think I've ever tried freezing it.
Oh yeah, freezes really well.
Yeah. Onions and green peppers and stuff you can chop up and freeze. A lot of vegetables freeze well. Grapes and bananas. Bananas you would want to peel and either slice or break into chunks and then freeze them. And I find frozen grapes and frozen banana chunks to be just a tasty snack. But you can also like put frozen bananas in a food processor and it makes like an ice cream.
Oh my God. Light of enlightenment. Here you are again, Kate. Because I always freeze my bananas with the peel on. Just like the darn avocado I would have done.
Looks like the avocado and the wine. Yeah.
It's a freezing frenzy here, but I always am nearly killing myself when I try to cut the peel off. I'm like, well, this is just so dumb. That makes total sense. Thank you.
Yeah. I also find that I like to freeze them when they're a little riper than I want to eat them. So I'll let them actually purposefully, if I want to freeze them, I'll let them purposefully get too ripe. But also it's when I see like, oh, these need to be thrown out, I'll be like, no, they don't. They need to be frozen.
Nice. And those are a great thing for smoothies. I love having frozen bananas for smoothies. Big time.
Yeah.
What's your experience with garlic? Freezing garlic?
I don't think I've ever tried.
Yeah.
Have you?
No, I haven't. I was just reading about it. But it seems like as long as it's going to go into like a mixture or stew or even be used in any type, even at the bottom of your pan for vegetables, it seems like it would be okay.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
I would imagine. You can freeze herbs.
Okay, that I haven't done.
Yeah, particularly if you like blend them up with a little olive oil or water and then put them in ice cube trays and then pop them out and put them in a baggie. It's a good way to, again, if you grow stuff and you have extra basil and you can't handle any more pesto and you just want to have it.
Nice. I was reading that eggs without the shells. Any experience?
Actually, yes. I don't know if I've ever told you this story. It's funny you mentioned that. I forgot about eggs. I did that once. I think I was going to start to make an omelet or a frittata or something, and something happened and I couldn't do it. And for whatever reason, I ended up having already beaten the eggs and added salt to them. And then I put them in a Tupperware container and put it in the freezer. And months later, I found it and I hadn't labeled it.
Nice.
Which one of the things my mother insists on is labeling your Tupperware, because no matter how obvious you think it is, you're going to at some point wonder what it is. So I couldn't figure out what it was, and I was smelling it and it was frozen. And so then I like scraped a spoon across the top of it. I'm like, it feels like some kind of frozen dessert or something. And I actually like took a little tiny mouthful of salty raw egg.
Oh gosh, that's terrible.
Yeah, but then it turned out to be fine. It does indeed work. Yeah.
And what's the lesson, Kate?
Label your stuff you put in the freezer. So all these things we're telling you about, label them, even if you think it's obvious.
Just trying to make your mother proud.
Exactly.
It always reminds me of this episode of The Golden Girls where, like, Dorothy comes into the kitchen and poor crazy Rose is there, and she's taking she just wants egg whites. So then she's taking all of the yolk and putting all of the yolks in bags. And she was going to donate all the yolks to a pantry for the homeless.
Was she putting them in individual bags?
No, just one big bag.
Sounds like she would have done them individually. Oh my goodness.
God, what else? I don't use a lot of flour, but it seems like flour, all that stuff, a lot of those dry goods freeze quite easily. Do you freeze a lot of that stuff?
No, I probably should, because I keep it on hand for the rare occasion that I use it, and I should definitely freeze it because they can get little bugs in them and stuff.
So it'd be flour, sugar. What else? Anything?
Probably almond flour, coconut flour, shredded coconut, stuff like that.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. Hey, Rick, what are you into these days?
I have actually been into cauliflower, trying just to like make it more and use it more in my kitchen. It's just not something I always think of using all the time. I don't usually buy it, so I never have it around. So I've been buying it, and obviously like I like grilling it is really a great thing to do. And then and just putting that on salads is really great. And then I made a cauliflower soup this week, which is really simple, really basic, and it was really tasty and really easy. And it's just a really great, vegetable to work with.
It's amazing how versatile it is. It's a little bit creepy, the things that it can do and masquerade as. I don't like it raw or just steamed, but in every other form, I think it's a miracle. Yeah, there's a cauliflower soup recipe I should send you from America's Test Kitchen, I think.
Fun.
They do a whole bunch of research on it. And so you use the cauliflower sort of 3 different ways. You cook it in different times because cauliflower has a different flavor and texture depending on how long you cook it and how you cook it. And so you can kind of get the best of each version. It's really interesting. It's not really hard. You just sort of put half of it in and then half late, it's a great soup.
Thank God you watch all of those cooking shows.
That recipe came from my mom. So yeah.
Shout out to Patricia.
Totally. We also wanted to talk about things that we can cook ahead to portion out and or freeze. So what else do you like to do for that?
So one of the things I just tried is I made a frittata. So I made a really large frittata, which is really tasty Again, one of those things that I also do sometimes to just use up things in my fridge that I think are going to go bad. So I made that, and then I froze it. Now, I haven't unfrozen it yet and tasted it, but I have high hopes that it's going to taste okay. So
well, it makes sense. I've never tried to freeze it either. I tend to just, if I make a big one, I keep it in the fridge, and it'll keep many days in the fridge. But they make frozen quiche. There's other frozen egg-based dishes. So I'm optimistic that it's going to be okay. The egg could get a little runny.
Agreed.
It could become liquidy. The water could separate in the freezing. That's the only potential. So please report back. I'm very interested to see what happens with that.
Oh, trust me, you'll hear. And as we talked about, you're the one that told me that curry freezes okay. So I made a large batch of the curry and I froze that. So that's another great thing to be able to put in your freezer in small servings and just pull out one a week or something like that.
Yeah, chili is a really great one. Either meat or veggie. Freezes really beautifully and can portion it out nicely.
My big thing is vegetarian burgers. So once you find a good veggie recipe for a burger, I usually make a large batch. Like I'll make about 15 or 20 burgers, and then I just freeze them because they're a really great thing that I can take out. I can throw on top of lettuce. I can also just take it and put it in my bag and take it when I go out. And if I need it for a snack during the day, it's really easy. It's really accessible.
That's smart.
Yeah.
I made a pork vindaloo not too long ago, which is sort of like an Indian pork stew. It wasn't spicy. It usually is. But anyway, I have batches of that in the freezer. So anytime I make like a stew or a meat dish or any kind of thing you eat in a bowl, basically, that usually tends to freeze really well. Potatoes don't freeze well. The texture of root vegetables changes when you freeze them. And I don't always mind that. So like the sweet potatoes will change a little bit in the curry after you take them out, but I don't mind it. My mother is obsessed about that, and she's like, you can't freeze root vegetables. But I defy her and do indeed freeze my root veggies. But of course she's right, as she always is. It does change the texture, but it's not torturous.
I agree.
But yeah.
And it's not enough to stop me from doing it because the convenience of having a frozen dish far overrides the small change.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing I've been doing is pesto. So I love making a lot of pesto and freezing that in small portions. So that's a really great thing to pull out. If you're going to have a little bread, you could put it on some bread if you want. I actually like to pull it out and use it as a dressing for my salad when I get bored with olive oil and vinegar. And then obviously, if you make any pasta, it's a really great thing just to pull out and throw on pasta.
Totally. I love it on salad. Absolutely. With just plain, really soft lettuce and pine nuts and pesto. That is my favorite thing.
Sweet.
Do you do it in ice cube trays?
No. I just do it in little, Tupperware containers. Nice.
Some people, you could do it in an ice cube tray, and then when it's frozen, pop them out and put them in a baggie, and then you have single serve pieces that are that size.
Oh, nice. That's a great tip.
Which is often the right sort of size you want for pesto. You don't always need more than that. So, and I find it's hard to, if I put too much in, I can't, I'm trying to chip away at it, and I break the Tupperware, and it doesn't go well for me.
Totally.
Lentils freeze well. So I make a lot of things with lentils. So I make dal, Indian lentil dishes, and also I do like a lentil quinoa pilaf type thing, and various things. Pilaf. So those kinds of things tend to freeze well. Stuff with beans, like I said, the chili.
I just made a masala lentil mixture, which was really, really great. So a bunch of obviously different spices. I think there was cumin, coriander, nutmeg, cinnamon, and I made this lentil dish, and it was really, really tasty. And now I have like 3 extra servings in the freezer because I made so much. It
is so valuable, don't you think? I think it is so valuable to have something tasty and fresh and healthy that you can just already in single serving size, so you don't have to think about it. There's no excuse not to eat it, and it's right there and ready.
Agreed. And it's the whole thing about success. It's just going to make you more successful as far as eating well and your calorie intake. And just the whole thing is like for the last month or two, the extent to which I've been cooking, I'm like, I can't keep this pace up of cooking something fresh every day. So I'm just getting more strategic about all the stuff that freezes because I have to. That way I'll have to maybe cook 2 or 3 meals a week, right?
Yes.
And then I can always have 1 or 2 that I can pull out because I don't even have children. And I find it hard to do. I don't know what you do if you have a family.
No, God knows. No, but exactly. When I was really eating well for a few years there, this was how I lived. But I also felt like I did spend probably 20 hours a week shopping, prepping, and cooking. And I think that's part of what has led to my demise, is that I couldn't maintain that level of that. And so I just sort of let it all drop, apparently, for a while there. Yeah. I like to keep cauliflower rice in my freezer that I make.
That's a good one. I haven't thought of that.
Yeah. So we talked at one point, I don't know if it's ever been aired yet or if it's something that we did for one of those things that gets dropped in, but cauliflower rice is one of those things that I've been into lately. And you just pulse it up in your food processor, and it's terrific, and you can make it all kinds of different ways, but it is a little bit messy. Like your kitchen gets covered in little bits of cauliflower when you make it. So I try to I'll buy 3 cauliflowers when they're on sale, and I'll rice them all up and then freeze them, and then I have it.
I'm going to do that. That's a great one. Because sometimes it's easier to pull it out and just have it there. Because to pull something out takes like a minute, and to let it defrost is obviously nothing off your back. But sometimes I don't even have the 10 or 15 minutes I need to like boil quinoa.
Yeah.
As a base for something.
Yeah. You like to keep quinoa cooked in the fridge, don't you?
I do every week. I just boil up a thing of quinoa, and then I have it if I want to throw it. Particularly, I throw it on a lot of my salads as a protein source. And then I also will just have it there as a base for anything that I want to make. And sometimes when I'm in the mood, I can just grab a big old bowl of it as a snack and throw it in my bag and head out. It's easy also to throw a bunch of vegetables in and just have that ready to go at any minute. And then, of course, I put pesto on it. I put other olive oil and vinegar and any other dressing you have.
I'm just picturing your bag now filled with quinoa and veggie burgers that have all fallen apart. Like the inside of your bag at this point does not look good in my head.
It doesn't. Especially those moments when you take your bag off and you don't want to leave it on your seat so anyone can see it, and then you put it in the back of your car, and then you really forget to take it out.
Oh, grody.
Either with the dirty dishes or actually food still in it. And I'm driving and I'm like, what is that smell?
Oh, nice.
Tough times.
Yeah, quinoa. I like quinoa with just like Parmesan cheese and olive oil and peas. Like that works really well.
Oh, really?
That's nice.
That's
nice.
Yeah.
Because it makes it almost like a poor man's risotto.
Totally. Oh, yeah, nice. That's a good one.
I mean, you can actually make it that way. You can make a risotto out of quinoa, but you don't have to.
The other big thing I make a lot of and freeze, not during the summer, are soups. So soups are really great things to
Oh my God, of
freeze.
course.
And you have to start to play with the ones that freeze well. Obviously, a lot of things with the cream base won't always hold together. But when you can get into the soups that are actually pure contents of, or have the pure contents of vegetables, like I've made a really great asparagus and leek soup that actually freezes well. I make a really great mushroom soup that freezes well. Beet soup freezes really well. What's the one? The minestrone. The minestrone soup will freeze well,
yeah, too. I don't think I've ever made a soup that doesn't freeze well, but I don't put cream in them, so that makes sense there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's a carrot tomato soup that I make with ginger sometimes. It's really great. And again, it separates, but once you heat it up, it all comes back together.
Nice.
And even just a root vegetable soup, even though the root vegetables get weird once you reheat it, it's fine. Even my mother will freeze her root vegetable soup. So once it's pureed, you're allowed, apparently.
Hi, Patricia.
Yeah, hi, Mama.
And the other, what did you just said something that made me think of something else I freeze. Oh, well, gone.
Carrot,
gone.
tomato, ginger soup, root vegetable soup.
Oh, ginger. I was going to say, one of the other things I've been doing is if you don't use up all of your ginger, you can peel it and throw your ginger in your freezer. And that's another really great thing to pull out and use, particularly if it's something, it can go right into a smoothie. That's another great thing.
Yeah, and you can grate it on a microplane into whatever you're using. I also freeze Serrano chilies because last summer I grew them and I ended up with 1 million of them, and it turns out they freeze really well. So I actually never have to buy them. They're one of those things that have become a pantry staple now because they're in the freezer. And when I run out, I will buy several and keep them in the freezer because I don't eat them. The texture does change, but I don't eat them raw, so it doesn't matter. So jalapenos, same thing. Like you can just keep a couple in the freezer so that you have them ready.
That I haven't done. I've done tomatoes. Obviously, those are a good thing to freeze. The texture changed a little bit, but I'll pull them out and put them in like a stew, or I'll put them into a chili where the texture doesn't matter too much.
Do you know you're not supposed to ever put tomatoes in the fridge until they've been cut?
No.
Yeah, tomatoes are one of those things that you're not supposed to store in the refrigerator, and it's another one of those things that both my mother and the Food Network yelled at me about for years before I listened. But sure enough, I did an experiment, and they were right.
Really?
It makes the mealy and the flavor really diminishes significantly. So tomatoes should be stored out of the fridge until they're cut, in which case they have to
Can you hold on while I go get the tomatoes out of the fridge?
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah. Tomato paste is another thing that freezes well, because if you open a can of tomato paste and you only use part of it, you can freeze the rest of it in saran wrap, like in little dollops, or just all together. It's easy to cut when it's frozen.
I feel like that's a plot against us by the people that make tomato paste.
Yeah.
Because they always give you far more than you ever need for one single recipe.
Well, I do buy those tubes also for if you just want a teaspoon or a tablespoon. It's just way more expensive. So if you want to use like half of a can, you don't want to use the tube because it's more expensive, but then you've got half the can. It freezes perfectly for future consumption.
And this is, for me, on my list, wasn't so much things I make, but other things I just have in my freezer all the time. A lot of like just frozen fruit.
Yeah.
Frozen fruit's a really great thing just to have around. It's really good for smoothies, obviously, in the morning. Hey, Kate, did you know that heart disease has been found in 3,000-year-old mummies?
How is there a heart in a mummy? The heart stays intact in a mummy?
I guess. Well, I assume this is from the Cleveland Clinic. They said they've been able to detect elements of heart disease in 3,000-year-old mummies. So I'm assuming it's somewhere else.
Fascinating. And that's a good segue into the last thing we wanted to talk about. We've had people ask us about like pantry staples. What should we always have on hand to kind of keep your house stocked well? Because, the whole thing is, eating well begins with what you have available in your home. And it's
Agreed.
The idea, if you don't have donuts at home, you're not going to eat them probably at 11 o'clock, or whatever.
Totally. Without making the effort to go out and get them.
Exactly.
There is an all-night Krispy Kreme in D.C.
Oh, awesome.
Just like 4 metro stops away. Not that I've gone.
No. Not that we'll go next time I'm there. Of course not. But so the whole thing is like, obviously you want to not have the crap in the house. Like I can't have peanut butter in the house, for example, but also then what do you have so that you can throw something together at a moment's notice? So a lot of times all I need to shop for is the fresh vegetables that's going to go in a meal because everything else I already have on hand. Or in a pinch, I could make stuff that's tasty and healthy without even going to the store. So
Exactly.
Frozen fruit, frozen berries, I agree completely. What else is on your list?
I have coconut milk. I always have cans of everything fresh, or a lot of cans of things I buy fresh. So I'll always have like canned tomatoes available. I'll have artichokes available. I'll have beans available.
Yeah.
And canned garlic.
Canned garlic?
Yeah. Or, jarred garlic.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Just in case I don't have any fresh garlic.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So I like to do, like diced tomatoes, tomato sauce, tomato paste, black beans, chickpeas, and cannellini beans. Because cannellini beans I often make with greens. When I do beans and greens, cannellini is the best bean for that. But black beans I make a black bean hummus out of. Chickpeas for curries and other stuff like that. Totally. Coconut milk, tomato paste. Yep.
And then I also have definitely a lot of quinoa.
Mm-hmm.
I'll always have lentils.
Yeah.
And I always have a basmati rice available.
Yeah. I have a Trader Joe's like slow cooking quick cooking brown basmati rice that I use that I'm in love with. If I use rice,
nice.
I don't usually serve rice. Sometimes with curry. When I'm serving curry to other people, I make rice. For myself, I don't. I always have stock or broth on hand, and it used to be in those quart containers, but now I like to use Better Than Bouillon, which is a little jar of concentrated base stock that you add.
This is really great, you guys. Kate turned me on to this.
Isn't it awesome? You add boiling water, and then you keep it in the fridge, and it lasts forever, unlike those quart containers that you have to use up. And also the flavor is way better, and it comes in chicken, beef, vegetable, mushroom, fish. It comes in all these different flavors, and it's really great. And you can just like dump a spoonful into a soup or into a curry, and it just brings out an added level of flavor.
And another one of those things that because it lasts for so long, because like when you have to open one of those big things of broth, again, I'm like, they're like the tomato paste people. They've got me.
Well, then I would always freeze the rest of that broth. But
I never did. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would do. But it's annoying. I prefer not to.
I also have popcorn.
Oh, yeah.
I've been making popcorn as a really great snack. So I can just pull that out and make it at any time.
That's a good one.
I also have ghee. So ghee is a really great sort of clarified butter. It's very much the good type of fat. So I use that in place of oils sometimes.
I don't know that it's the good type of fat. I know that they've taken away some of the milk fat solids that are more bad, but I don't know that it turns it into all good fat, does it?
I've always just understood that when you compare it with the other fats that are around, it's like one of the better types. That's how I've always understood it. So I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, I always understood it's better than butter, but it doesn't become healthy fat.
Okay.
I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
We'll look into that. Janice, if you could look into that for us. Get off the phone, Janice.
I think she's asleep in the studio.
I think Janice drinks.
A lot.
All right, Janice, let us know.
Time to get a new producer.
I always keep sriracha on hand or gochujang or some kind of hot chili, a number of different hot chili pastes, because I also keep stuff to make a stir fry, which means I've always got like soy sauce and rice wine vinegar, and I use tamari instead of fish sauce in Chinese or Thai foods, and sesame oil. So I count that all in the stir fry category.
Nice. I have nuts. Nuts are really good for salads.
Yes.
Throw in smoothies.
And once I open the bags, I keep them in the fridge because they can go rancid if you don't eat them quickly enough.
Very good. Very good. I keep a lot of seeds. I keep pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, and flax seeds. They're always available.
Yep. Worcestershire sauce. I always
keep drinking with Janice.
Because you drinking with Janice. That'll be our next episode. It adds a good like little umami boost to stuff. If you're feeling like something needs a richness or depth of flavor, Worcester sauce actually is something to keep in mind. It's surprising, and it's also especially good with avocado. I love to mash up an avocado and just put Worcester sauce on it. I don't know why I can't say that today. And it's surprisingly delicious.
I keep water chestnuts, sun-dried tomatoes, obviously really great for salads, really good for stir fries.
That's good. I have a full arsenal of spices because, as we've discussed...
Take the lead with the spices.
Oh, I wasn't even going to talk about what I have for now. It's too many, but I have ridiculous amounts of spices because I really find the key for myself. I am one of those people that loves those big, bold, spicy flavors that you might consider to be over-seasoned, Rick. And so I find that having a really flavorful spice, not necessarily hot, but spice-infused meal makes it especially satisfying for me. So I have to have it. So I have spices to make all kinds of chili powders and curry powders and various things. And so when I see a recipe that's interesting, I don't go, I can't make that because I don't have X, because I probably have it. And I have
what's your
good
opinion on how long you let spices hang around in your pantry?
Yeah, it depends. You're supposed to theoretically swap them out every 6 months. I certainly don't do that. I try to buy small quantities now. So there's a wonderful neighborhood spice store in my neighborhood called Savory Spices, and I can buy little bags of it now, and it's really inexpensive. And so I buy smaller amounts so that I don't have to keep them around as long. But when they start to go pale and the smell and flavor is diminished, that's when I throw them out and replace them.
Agreed. I actually just started doing the same thing you did. Found a spice store, and to buy it in the smaller quantities. And I'm always so excited when I actually finish a spice because I feel like so many times I just throw them out.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, some of them, there's just no way around that, and I just am not going to use them often enough, and that's how it goes. There's a couple of spice blends that I like, but I like to make my own a lot. Almond milk. I usually have unsweetened vanilla almond milk on hand.
That's a good one.
And Greek yogurt, which is good not only in smoothies, not only as a snack with honey and fruit, but it also makes really great dips. It's a way to make a dip that instead of using sour cream or mayonnaise that you might normally make, you can use yogurt, and it's terrific for that.
I keep honey on board.
Oh, honey.
Honey's a great thing
for
to
sure.
add to dishes. It's a good thing to add. I like to mix it with yogurt sometimes with some seeds on top, and it's a really great thing to throw into your smoothies a little bit to bring out the sweet quality. Yeah,
Bobby Flay has taught me a lot about putting honey in all sorts of marinades and sauces and as a sweetener.
Is Bobby Flay your new boyfriend? I can't remember. Is that his name?
He's somebody's new boyfriend, I'm sure.
Because every time I call you, he always seems to be talking in the background.
Yeah. So, honey, for sure. I think that's about it.
That's all I got.
Yeah. I'm sure we're forgetting stuff. I should have gone and looked in my pantry before making this list, but I think that's a pretty good foundation. So if you guys have ideas for things we've forgotten, for things that you think freeze well, for things that are great pantry staples, please write to us, call us, send us an email, send us an audio file, and we'll do a follow-up because we are very interested in your opinions and your ideas.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. Have a great week.
Thanks. Stock up.
Let us know if you have any other ideas for pantry staples or things that we don't know we can freeze. Thanks for listening.